So today we will build a setup very much inspired by the new Ghost multi-effects module by Endorphin.es and Andrew Huang. I also have the hardware module, I use it quite a lot, so I thought it might be interesting to build something in VC VRAC. This is how the interface will look like together with the patch bay. I will go through everything at the end of the video, but let's start building the setup itself. Okay, so here I have a simple voice just so we can test things later on. And we will start with the filter section on Ghost. Right, we have three different filter types. The first one is a DJ style filter with low pass on the left and high pass on the right. So in VCV, we will use disjoint from Volt, right? Also here we have low pass to the left and high pass to the right and resonance and everything else we need. On Ghost, we can also change this to be a band pass filter, right? So in VCV, I will use the surge filter and change it to be a band pass. I will stay with the OBXD model. And again, on Ghost, we can even change this to be a comb filter. Right, so again in VC VRAC I will just use another one from Surge and I will go to the effects and change the comb filter. And later on the interface we will be able to switch between them and even turn them on and off and save CPU. Okay, now on Ghost we also have a delay with tone controls and repeats and even a clock input to sync the delay. So in VC VRAC, let me move things here a bit. We will use the surge delay, right? Also here it's a stereo delay. We have tone control, so lows and highs, right? And we also have an external clock input so we can sync everything. And on Ghost, we also have a reverb with tail control and pre-delay and even freeze. We can even freeze the reverb. So in VC VRAC, of course, we will use plateau. Now, we cannot reverse this reverb like on Ghost, but we can freeze it. We have here the hold function that will basically freeze the reverb. And there is even something that's not available on Ghost. And this is the clear function that will clear the buffer and can also be quite interesting. Okay, now Ghost has a pre-VCA, so a VCA for the input. There is also a tone control and gain control. So in VC VRAC, if I go here to the left, we will use the stereo strip from Befaco, right? Also here we can change the color. We have lows, mids, and highs. And we have also boost, so level boost switches that we can use. And on Ghost, there's even a post VCA, so there's a VCA for the output after all of the effects and everything. And it has also a drive control, right? So in VCV, we will use punch from Volt. Again, it's a stereo VCA, and we have also drive control that we can use. Another interesting component Ghost has is a distortion. So in VC VRAC, let's put the distortion here. Let's say we will use the distortion again from Surge. Again, it's a stereo distortion. I will go with the OJD model. Okay, now before we move on to a very interesting feature Ghost has, I would like to mix the filters. So we'll have a stereo signal to work with. For this, I will use the Surge mixer. Right, and now I can connect the filters. So we have the DJ style filter first, then we have the band pass, then we have the comb filter, right? I'm going to open the levels all the way. And again, later on the interface, we will see how we can change between them. Okay, so now for the interesting feature Ghost has is the ability to change the routing of the effects, distortion, and filter, right? You can see this here. So we can have the effects go to the distortion and then to the filter, which is my personal favorite. Reverb into distortion is live. We can also have the distortion go to the filter and then to the effects, or have the filter go to the effects and then to the distortion. Now for this, for switching between the routings in VC VRAC, let me just take this voice here. we will use this mixer here, the Intermix module from Störmelder. It is available in the library, and with it we can change between snapshots or scenes and change the routings between the modules. Okay, so first of all we will have the filters, and just for clarity I will use blue cables, so the filters will be blue, and you will see also soon enough why I leave also two inputs here empty. Right, then we have the effects. So first of all, the delay will go to the reverb. For this I will use yellow cables. And then from the reverb it will go again to the mixer. And then we have the distortion. For this I will use green cables, right? So we have 1 and 2. And now from the outputs, this will go again once to the filters. Again, I will leave 2 empty and again use blue cables. So we have left and right, and now I can just hold control and get copies of the cables, right? So we have left and right going to all 3 filters. Then we have the effects, right? Again, yellow cables 1 and 2, left and right. Then distortion, green cable, left and right. And then to the output VCA, so this will go to punch, and here we have 2 more outputs, 1 and 2. Right, and now let's test this. So I will send the voice that I have here, the sine VCO, basically going through the envelope generator VCA from Surge, and I can control this with my keyboard. Right, so this will go first to the input VCA, to the stereo strip, and then this is why I left also 2 inputs here empty. This will go to the intermix, right? And also we have actually to connect the output. So the output from punch will go to the main output, and now we can start working on the different scenes. So again, the first routing option is the effects to distortion to filter. So first of all, we will send the voice to the effects, right? So the voice is red, the effects are yellow, input to output. So I go and I have here left and right, right? So the left input will go to the left output to the effects. The right input will go to the right output, again to the effects, right? Then from the effects to the distortion, effects are yellow, distortion is green, so we have left and right. And then the distortion to the filter, so green to blue, again left and right. For now, let's use the DJ style filter. So I will just solo this quickly on the mixer. This will be channel 1. And now the signal will go from the filters to the output. So filters is blue, output is red, again left and right, right, left and right. So now we should get sound. Right, it goes through the whole processing. So again, I can change, I can add a boost to the stereo strip. I can change the sound a bit, filter, DJ style in this case. Right, then this is going first of all to the effects. Some reverb. Right, so effects to distortion and then filter. So if I add more distortion. Right, or less distortion, of course. Right, so this is the first routing option. Now let's set the second run. So I will move to the second scene here. In this one, the voice, right, goes first to the distortion, then the filter, and then the effects. Right, so first of all, the voice to the distortion, which is red to green, then distortion to filter, so green to blue, then to the effects, so blue to yellow, and then to the output, yellow to red. Let's see this. This is nice. This is very nice. So now we have the third routing option, which will be the voice going first with the filter, then effects, and then distortion. So let's select the third scene here. Right, so the voice goes first to the filter, so red to blue, then to the effects, so blue to yellow, then to the distortion, yellow to green, and then to the output, green to red. Right, so now we have all three different routing options, and again we can switch between them, right, just with a click of a button. And just to make sure that there are no clicks or anything while switching, I will add some fade in and out to this. You see, all of them are set to linear fade, and now we can switch or set the timing here of fade in and fade out. So let's go 0.1, just a bit, right? So there is just a bit of fade in, so there are no clicks. Let's see. Right, no clicks. Just to make sure that everything is sounding nicely. Another thing I will do, I will also lock the scenes, so I will not change anything by accident. In the right click menu, we can scene lock, right? And now I can click everywhere, but it will not do anything, and I can switch between the scenes, but not change anything by accident. Okay, so now we have a few more things to add. So first of all, we have a compressor with side chaining as well. In this eurorack, I will use the compressor. This will be before the VCA. I will use the compressor from Squinky Labs, this one here. Later on, I will show you how I set this up on the interface. And we need also a side chain function. For this, I will use two oppressor modules from Flag. They are mono, and we need a stereo chain, right? I really like this module for side chaining, since it will work across different frequency bands, right? And unlike the side chaining on Ghost, right, here we have a trigger input. This one will work with the actual audio and not just a trigger, right? So the signal from the intermix will go to the compressor, from the compressor to the both sections, both connections on oppressor. Right now we also need an envelope output. Here we have an envelope out. This will output the envelope from the side chaining. Again, in this case, this will output the amplitude envelope of the audio instead of just the normal envelope. So for this, we need an envelope follower. I will use the one from Bog Audio, right? So we can have the amplitude envelope of whatever we use to side chain the audio. Now, Ghost also has a bit crusher and sample rate reduction. So in VCV-Rack, I will use T-Rex. Let's put this here after the filters, T-Rex from All Right Devices. Now, this is a mono module and we need a stereo chain again. So since this is VCV, we can add as many modules as we want. So I will just duplicate it so we have two. Later on, I will add also here a way to bypass them. So if you don't use them, you can save CPU. And again, this will be after the filter, right? So we have the outputs. I will use the lower outputs, but the upper inputs, which means that if nothing is connected to the lower inputs, this will be routed to both bit crusher and sample rate reduction. Now, another thing I would like to add is a way to have this chain as a sand effect, so you can control the dry and wet amounts just like on Ghost. So for this, I will use the sand module from Volt, right? So the input will come from the stereo strip, the output from punch, right? So we have left and right, so this will go to punch, right? And then the send will go to the mixer, and the return will come from the oppressor modules. So now we can control the dry and wet amount. So now it will be just dry, and I can start adding the signal until it's fully wet. Right, so we have dry and wet controls. And that's it for the under the hood section. You can see that there's a lot going on and it's quite a deep module. Let me show you now the interface and how everything works. Okay, this is the interface, and patch bay. Before I start showing you this, I want to mention something, because I'm using here the strip modules for bypassing and unbypassing the different modules to save CPU. You see I have here filters that are bypassed and the T-Rex modules that are bypassed. Please don't move anything. If the modules get close to one another, everything will be bypassed together and things will not work anymore. So just leave everything as it is. You see I have here also a notes module. Don't move the modules close to one another or to each other. If you want to move things, just select everything and move everything together, but don't move any of the modules. Things might not work for you. Okay, so now that we have this, now let's go back to the interface and I want to show you everything. So I have here a voice, a sequence coming from Entropia with two classic VCOs from Surge. And here we have on the patch bay, we have the input. This is a stereo input. You will have to connect to both inputs for it to be stereo. Even if you have a mono signal, you have to connect it to both inputs. In this case, I have stereo, so I will just connect this. Right, and I have the output from here connected to the output. Right, so now what we have the gain. Let me zoom in a bit more. Right, this is the interface. You can just zoom on this and work on your sound design. So we have input gain, we have gain boost. Right, and again we have the tone controls, right, that you can use to shape the sound before it goes into this whole chain. Then we have the filter, again low pass, high pass, right, with a cut of CV, attenuator, resonance, of course. Right, and here we can change between the filter types. So again, we have DJ, we have bandpass, and we have a comb filter. And have a look here on the filters. When I change this, for example, to bandpass, if I click it, you see this joint now is bypassed and the bandpass filter is active. So this will save now this joint and the comb filter are bypassed, so they are not working, so it will save CPU. Right, so now we have a bandpass filter. Or we have a comb filter. Right, so you can use this as well. Let's go back to the DJ. Right, then we have a lo-fi, which is sample rate reduction and bit crusher. Also here, they are by default bypassed, so it will save CPU. If you want to use them, all you have to do is enable them. Sample rate reduction, bit crusher. Very nice, and if you don't use them, just disable them and then it will save CPU. And then we have the routings, just like we did before with the intermix module, right, with this mixer here. Now I have buttons controlling the routings, and you can choose only one, just like with the filters. So again, now it's a distortion going to filter, going to effects. Let's change this to filter distortion, effects distortion filter. Right, and now we can add delay, we have mix. Right, I can also sync this, so if I take the clock, for example, right, we have here a clock input for the delay clock, right? So now this will be in sync, and still I can change the left and the right separately. Right, I can add repeats. I have here also control over the tone of the delay. Right, also a few attenuators if you want to modulate things. Everything here is on the patch bay. You see dry wet, delay feedback, delay time. Right, then we have reverb, again with mix control. We have tail, and the tail, have a look if you can see this here on plateau. If I turn the tail, it will turn both the decay and the size at different ratios. Let's take the delay down for a second. In this case, also here I added modulation depth and rate. so you can create all sorts of different things, different sounds. Right, also here you have an EQ. Right, if you take the lows a bit down. And again, the effects in this case will go to the distortion. So here we have this, we have also freeze, of course. Distortion. Output volume if it's getting too loud. Right, I will have a look. We will have a look at the compressor in a second. Right, also here for the distortion you have tone control, which is also a sort of a filter-like effect. More drive at the output. Right, we have also the pre-VCA and the post-VCA. Right, so if you want to use the pre-VCA, you will have to connect something and then change it also to the pre-VCA here, right? Or change this back to internal. The same with the post-VCA if you want the post-VCA. Let's say that I want the envelope now to control the VCA, the output VCA. Right, so I just connect it here to the post-VCA and I have to switch it also. Right, so now, wow, this is cool. So now the envelope will control everything, the VCA after everything, after the distortion and reverb and everything, right? So you can get quite interesting results. Right, so this is one example that I have here. Don't forget also there is dry and wet controls, right? So this is the original voice and this is after this chain, which is quite cool. Okay, let me show you another example. Okay, so now I have here drums for this example. I have the topograph, which is grids for mutable instruments, sequencing, a kick, a closed hat, and a snare. This is going already. This is mono, but you see I connected to both inputs, just so it's not just on the left or just on the right. This is already going through, so it will sound like this. Right, and now again, we can start changing things. This is boost for the input. Right, we can have the comb filter in this case. By the way, I believe that the comb filter will also follow volt per octave, so you can also sequence this. Oh yeah. Lo-fi. Now in this case the distortion is going to the filter and then to the effects. Let's change this to filter effects distortion. Right, you can see this is quite a fun chain and you don't even have to look at the modules, you just look at the interface, concentrate on sound design, really like this. Let's have some reverb and you know what, let's now use the clear function of the verb of the reverb. If I use the same, let's say this will work with the trigger, so let's say the trigger from the snare, right, this will go to the reverb clear. Oh man, a bit of pre-delay. Right, so we have more movement and again distortion. Oh yeah. Ooh. And now let's use the compressor. So if you have a look, let me take the volume down for a second. If I bring the compressor here, don't do what I do, don't move modules, but I just want to show you how it works with the compressor. So when I turn the compressor, you see what happens there? The more I turn it, the threshold goes down, the output goes a bit up just to compensate for the volume, and the attack goes down, the release goes up. Right? So this will compress it quite a bit just with one control, with one knob. Similar to how it works also on Ghost, you can really add nice compression. Right? And again, we have side chaining, and in this case, let me take this down a bit. And in this case, again, this will not work with the trigger like on Ghost. This will work with the actual audio. And here we have the side chain input, right? So I'm going to use the audio, actual audio from the kick drum, right? And let's see how it sounds like. Right? So now, of course, it will take the levels of the kick drum a bit down, because when it's playing, it will also sidechain itself, sort of. So we can take the dry-wet control a bit. Again, this is the original. And now. Oh, man. Right, and we have, again, we have the envelope output that we can use to modulate things. So if I use it, for example, I don't know, what shall we modulate? The filter, maybe? Let's see. Oh, man. Yes, indeed. This is quite a fun chain to play with, quite a fun setup to play with. If you have the chance, if you have also hardware, I highly recommend checking out also the module itself, the Ghost module. It's marvelous, it's glorious, it's fun. Thank you again for watching. Of course, everything, if you want this setup, it's available in the description for free. Just download it, have fun. Cheers.